So before I start, I just want to thank the guy who bumped into me outside the pub who gave me the British flag, but I can't remember your name. I'm really sorry. I'm terrible with names, I'm great with faces. Next time I see you, I'm sure I'll recognise you. But thank you very much for the flag. I needed to get one, and now I have one. Thank you. Anyway, on that note, it turns out that Zulu is racist. Why? Because it's got black people in, and it's reproducing something that happened historically. Therefore, it must be racist, even though actual Zulus starred in the film. And if you watch, like, the making of it and stuff like this, you can see that they're happy to do it. They look happy to reenact a battle that their ancestors fought bravely in. It's crazy. I mean, like, I haven't seen the film Zulu in quite some time, but I really don't remember getting racist overtones from the film, which is exactly how they're describing it here. If anything, the Zulus are portrayed as terrifying and powerful and capable, and the British are fucked. And that's what made it such, the Battle of Rorke's Drift, that's what made it a heroic stand. The fact that they fought off like something like 5,000 Zulus. There are 139 of them. That's an amazing feat and worthy of being celebrated in film, both for the victorious British and the worthy enemy. Campaigners are calling for a charity showing of epic war film Zulu to be axed over claims it contains racist overtones. Well, who would these campaigners be exactly? Are they far-left university students? I'm going to put my money on that before I've even read this fucking article. The 1964 classic will be aired at Folkestone's Silver Screen Cinema on Saturday to raise aid for Armed Forces charity SSAFA. But in an open letter to Folkestone Mayor and District Councillor Anne Berry, some 28 whole people came out in protest this month. Well, if 28 people don't want them showing that film, then I guess they better cancel it. It's not like those 28 people can't just stay fucking home, is it? The charity only works to improve the lives of military veterans and their families. Why would they need help? They're probably basically colonialists, which is why they're showing Zulu and making money out of it. The pieces are all falling into place. The letter addressed to Councillor Berry says, "We wholeheartedly support the efforts being made to raise funds for SSAFA, the Armed Forces charity, but we believe that the choice of the film Zulu, with its inaccurate portrayal of historical events and its distortions and racist overtones, could have a negative effect on relationships within the changing and richly diverse communities here in Folkestone." Do you have a lot of Zulus in Folkestone, do you? And really, I mean, like, it's obviously a film is never really going to be particularly historically accurate, but Zulu is by far the worst offender in that regard. Zulu is a lot better than most, and I imagine that part of it is by the fact that they actually used actual Zulus in the film. The letter goes on to take issue with the perceived factual inaccuracy surrounding the film, including the battle at Rorke's Drift, the film's premise. I wish I'd seen this letter. I don't see a link to it anywhere, which is annoying because I want to see what their complaints are. It continues, however, the so-called epic story of honour and courage and pride portrayed is far from the truth of what really happened. Are you kidding me? These guys were fighting like demons all day, to the point where they were like holed up in this, I don't know, a shed or a shack or something, and they were kicking down the doors and they were just shooting through the holes. It must have been terrifying, and I think it took a lot of honour, courage and pride to be able to do that. But I mean, I suppose if honour, courage and pride are things you don't actually respect or even give a shit about, then why would you care? What would you recognise in it? This film glorifies the myth that was created after 1879 after the humiliation of the British military defeat at the Battle of Isandlwana. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but yeah, and that was a great victory for the Zulus. They actually managed to defeat quite a large, comparatively speaking, British force, well armed, because of the mistakes that the British force made, and the sensible tactics that the Zulus used. And undoubtedly the British victory at Rorke's Drift was used to kind of put salve on the wound of that defeat. The Battle of Rorke's Drift was, in reality, little more than a footnote after a far more important and far more gory battle earlier in the day, 11 miles away. Yes, it was. But that doesn't make it any less heroic for the men who fought in it. The victory at Rorke's Drift was about morale. It was about bringing the forces back into line and saying, look, we've just lost one battle, we haven't lost the war. It's how any war is fought. You have to have morale-raising mythologies that surround your troops. Otherwise they're going to get demoralised and lose before they even take foot on the battlefield. Yes, you're going to mythologise great victories, and yes, Rorke's Drift was a great victory, even though it wasn't important. The same can be said for Thermopylae, right? The Battle of Thermopylae lasted for 3 days, and the Persians took a month to get to Athens after it. The Battle of Battle of Thermopylae was not a necessary thing to happen. However, it was when you look at it from a morale-raising perspective, when it actually got the Athenians and Spartans into the field to engage in a sustained campaign against a far superior enemy, numerically anyway. The idea that these things don't matter is really subjective. And when you say, well, it's just a footnote, well, a lot of heroic events have still just been footnotes. Take the Sikhs who are guarding the pass coming in from Afghanistan. 21 Sikhs fought to the death against 10,000 Afghanis, despite the fact they didn't have to. And they defended it, they sent a messenger out, they told the British that a huge Muslim army is coming, and they just decided to fight to the death because fuck it. Oh, it's just a footnote in history. Just a footnote, it didn't change anything really. No, but it was heroic, and I think we should recognise that. So the organiser of this said, come and see this rare screening of Zulu on Armed Forces Day and help raise funds for the SSAFA. Make up your own mind as to whether this is a timeless tale of courage, honour and pride, or a product of year that has no currency and should be banned. Okay, even if it's not a timeless tale of courage, honour and pride, it's still not something that should be banned. End of story. There's no debate about this. I've seen Zulu multiple times now, and it is not a racist film. In fact, it seems to be kind of a homage to the men involved on both sides, of which there were vast numbers of casualties. Everyone is welcome to attend and express their own opinion before and after the screening. Well, that's what a far-right neo-Nazi alt-writer racist would say, isn't it? I know why you're putting this film on, it's because you just hate black people! And have you noticed that the far left will not let black people own their history at all? Especially, and this, what especially annoys me about it is the heroic bits of it. Because the Zulus were an imperial tribe. The Zulus started as one of the smallest tribes in their region, and just through the reforms of Shaka Zulu, in fact, turning them into something more like a sort of African version of the Roman Legion, they absolutely demolished the two bigger tribes next to them and absorbed them and said, right, you're all Zulus now, you're going to fight our way, and boom, suddenly you have Zululand, a giant, what is effectively empire in the south of Africa. And this is an impressive accomplishment, given the time, the place, and the history. This is something they can be proud of. And then, when they end up going to war with the British, they fight well and bravely. And they're a tough enemy that the British are afraid of. And there's an old phrase that goes around that, it probably wasn't necessarily about the Zulus, but it was definitely about colonization in Africa, where it was just, if all else fails, we have the Maxim gun and they don't. And that's what it really came down to. The British were aware that it was their technological superiority that was winning these battles. It wasn't necessarily about racial superiority, especially given how the British military were, the officers were told to treat the Zulu as cavalry because they ran so goddamn fast. And the tactic they used was something called the bull's horns, where you'd have the main body of the army engage, and then around the corners you'd have incredibly fast running units of Zulus that would envelop, encircle, and then butcher everyone trapped in the centre. Fantastic strategy. It's not like these people weren't capable warriors, and I think we should allow them to own that. That's how I would respect the Zulus. And honestly, I think if you met a Zulu tribesman, which I'm sure they do still exist, if you met them, I would sure they would like to be respected for what they were. Rather than just say, oh no, that's racist, that's racist. How dare you? No, it's not racist, it's fucking heroic. It's manly. And I think the Zulu's a good tribute to that, so get fucked, you pricks.